Hey, welcome back everyone to Shrimp of the House Recall, Part 6, page 14. Falling back into a slow pattern here. It's like with sleep lately, it's just been feast or famine, so to speak. So it's like the last couple of days, it's like been unable to sleep regularly, so instead it just like am dead tired through the day, like barely able to focus on this. Um, what am I doing? No, I need structure. Kind of taking naps at weird times, that sort of stuff. So I'm recording this to kind of kick my butt into gear and force myself to focus. My head is still a little blurry, but what I got to do is take out a wall. I'm working with the personal sauna that we haven't seen since the very first story. Back wall. It's kind of a small room, so I'll have to work by taking out walls so I can get wider shots. Um, the steam effect here is basically I just created a primitive, created a new primitive, created a plane. It's I think about 1 foot. Cancel, and then we go to perspective view for a second. See, there's the missing wall. Let's see, where's the camera? Oh, here's the camera. So you see this represents the camera I was using, and I'm not sure if you'll see this on the YouTube video, but here is the plane that I had created. And I attached it to the camera and parked it right in front of the lens. Went into, let's see, here's the plane, into the surfaces tab. I basically set the opacity at 40% so you can see through it, and then through sort of this cloud image that I'd created ages ago in GIMP for stuff like this. So let's go back into the camera. I think too part of the reason I've been going a little slow this week. This is going to be 2901. Part of the reason I've been going slow this week too is, well, for one, that burger scene, the burger joint was just a technically slow 2 pages. Um, and there's been a lot of setup between that one, the dinner scene, and this thing. I'll render that while I'm talking. I think I can go with this box. We will Control C. Edit, paste as a new layer. Um, and in addition to, oops, I gotta change this. Let's see. Uh, So you spent the whole meal doing damage control. I think, too, I've been struggling internally with what to do, uh, what to put on the page after the dinner. I forgot to control C there. What I originally had in mind was to go a couple of more pages on the same day, before concluding the same day. The idea is this page would be this page would basically take place in the bedroom. I think I can cut this down a little bit. I'm going to trim bottom layer. I'm going to trim this bottom layer. There we go. So the idea is this page would have taken place in the bedroom, where basically we get the same sense, sort of the same gist I'm going with here, except it's just Liz and David getting ready for bed, talking about what a failure the whole thing was when they hear the boys trying to sneak in. And then it would probably be the next page, page 15, where Liz confronts them before they're able to sneak off to their rooms. Kind of spirits them away to Alex's room so that she can yell at them privately. And then kind of go from there. It's sort of the idea would be that it's probably it would probably be that moment. It probably would have been, I should say, because it probably would have been that moment where I sort of reveal that she knows what Jackson did at this point in the story. Oh shoot! Oh, yeah, I guess that looks good. And I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I think what would have happened was I show David kind of sneaking out of the bedroom and following them, only to sort of get shut out of the conversation when Liz shuts the door behind her. And he can't quite make out what's being said on the other side. I'm gonna put the wall back in. Let's see. So the idea, so it's basically I put that aside because I think primarily I wanted to move the story along and sort of get beyond that day because here it's been 13 pages spent on one day. Get to tell them what I wanted to. So it's basically here I get to do the same sort of self-speculation, but move it ahead a day. And let's see, and similarly along that line, I'm trying internally to imagine this story ending in part 7 instead of going to a part 8. And I think part of it is advanced layers, because every time throughout the series I do a sequence where the shrunken character um, no, I can't really say every time, but it's when it's I think it's like at this point in the series when I do a character do a piece where the shrunken character is stuck playing with the toys as if they're one of the action figures. It just it's like it sounds more interesting in my head than it feels like when I actually do it. One of those things that sounds better in theory than in practice. So it's I get to do it, and I don't really enjoy the sequence like I thought I would. Let's see. number. Major frown. Um, I think another thing too is I hate doing the same thing over and over again. I know like a lot of writers and content creators basically, they find success with a formula and they just keep pumping out project after project according to that formula. And it's like I just I really can't do that like in my head. I mean, if it feels like a project is similar to something I've done before, like to me, there's something different enough about it that it doesn't feel like it's exactly the same thing. So you spent the whole meal doing damage control? I never did get to tell them what I wanted to. You've been here an hour and he still hasn't said his goodbyes to the two of you. It's sort of they're subtly having a cruel joke at his expense. Because, like I say, everybody knows except him. It's like literally everybody knows except him. Oops. I'm gonna put that on before I lose it from the clipboard. Uh, so it's like, I guess going back to whatever started that talk. I guess part of it in my head, I feel like how many times can I really do a sequence with a character playing with the toys as if they're one of the action figures, yada yada yada. So going back to where this was headed is I'm not exactly sure. I'm not exactly sure if I can see if I can really like in my head justify spending a whole issue, a whole part with just David being manhandled by Aiden and being forced to play with him. But I think one thing that's got me kind of nervous about that is at the same time, I really don't want to do what I did late in the very first story, where I just sort of hand waved. I just sort of like, you just kind of waved away a good chunk of the size change. Where there were like entire sequences where you just get like one image at different sizes just to sort of fast forward the story to a later stage in the size change. It's the debate of it's sort of that like give and take between not rushing it at this point just to get to the end result versus not getting hung up on each and every day like I did on the previous day in this issue. It's like he doesn't care about us or something. Oh, and I hope I'm not getting too maudlin here. Oops. I sort of do want to have Eva. I did come into this wanting to have Eva mess with David a little bit, not really crossing any lines, but sort of like threatening to cross a line but not actually doing it. Just messing with him. Kind of like in that first story where she gets a little flirty, even though, she gets a little flirty with him, even though like everybody knows she's not really she's not really flirting with him. The idea is because they're not blood, she can get away with kind of messing with him like that. Like I said, not really, not crossing a line, but threatening to, but like, almost threatening to, kind of. Layered image size. But, to go back again, when I was talking about the mist effect, it is different from what I did in that very first story. Um, and the so-called filter I've got, It's a different effect anyway. What do I do? So it was in the first story. I can actually show you here. Let's collapse everything. David's house. So in my, let's see, the sauna is in the furniture bathroom. So I've actually still got it. If I zoom out, let's go to perspective for a moment. Oops. And I might actually have to come outside the sauna to show it. So I think in the very first one, the effect was a cube. And let's see how much of this I have to take out. Okay, yeah, so take out the front, the side, and I think the door. Yeah, okay, so if I take out the glass, you can see it. The mist is actually a cube with a different texture covering it. But the problem is the texture only applies to the walls. So once you go inside, the texture is not there, so to speak. So if let's grab Danny's head and just zoom on it and go inside the box. This is the problem I had to deal with. Once I go inside, I don't have that texture filtering the screen. So I think I had to continually resize the box to keep one of the walls between the camera and the character I was shooting at. Let's see if we go outside. So that's why this time I just went with a plane and attached it to the camera. So now I gotta put everything back on, except for the mist. Let's take the mist off. So where was I? Okay. So David. So one thing with David is, I think initially I was playing with sort of resizing the clothes to make it look like they're getting bigger in relation to him. And then I sort of kind of hand waved the whole thing at some point in this story. So somewhere around here, I want to redo his. Actually, I just took put everything back on. What I'm going to do is take it off again. And this side, no. I wonder this piece here is what I'm trying to take off. Actually, let's take the ceiling off too. I have a feeling I'm going to be. Well, maybe not. I'm going to just put the ceiling back on. This wall here might be. So it's this little piece here I've got to find and take out. Frame. Yep, that's it. Okay. So it's kind of what I want to do, probably going forward from here. And I'm not really sure. Not really sure if I'm going to be, how it's going to come out. But it's sort of somewhere around here is where I kind of want to move away from real clothes. Here we're going with a wide shot, so I can kind of get the scope of the whole thing. And they're going to make sure, okay. Shoot. Okay, the issue. So now I'm going to come in here. Let's find that plane that's attached to the camera. The thing about the texture I've got here is it's not tileable. So you can see the edge of the texture here. Because we're going to surfaces, I basically sort of I tiled it so instead of the texture covering the whole plane, it's tiled 2 by 2. So I think which way? So hopefully, because I'm on a wider screen, I don't know. Okay. Actually, the way I've got it set up, it's probably going to get trimmed off the page anyway, so I'm going to live with that. So it's like I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do with David, because my thing in all the previous stories is that the characters get shrunk with their clothes, so it's not really an issue. I can just have them wear the same thing the whole time that they're going through the process. Um, in here, though, he was shrunk while he was sleeping in his underwear, so the only thing he's got that's shrinking with him is his underwear, which so far in story inexplicably you know hasn't made a reappearance. I'm serious here. I'm serious here. I'm not gonna be around next week, and I'm trying. Oops. Letters. I think 45. Yep. Okay, so the edge of that texture gets cut off, so it's like right here on this side, and it goes off the page, and it's right here. It's right here on this side. So it's a couple of things I'm thinking about with David and the clothing issue. Let me finish this first. I'm going to be around next week, and I'm. What you want to do is joke and ruin the moment. So a couple of things I can do is like more hand waving, so to speak. Is sort of like take regular clothes that I've got in my library and reworking the textures a little to make them pass as like doll clothing, and then like action, and then clothing for Aiden's action figures. You know, when he gets smaller than the doll size. But oops, I've got three of them. Let's grab this one. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna use all three of them. I'm gonna move this one here, that over just a little bit, and then this one. No, it's this one. Transform flip. The other thing, and I actually did this in the Iron Brotherhood Tyler story, in the fantasy sequence where Tyler is imagining Gabe to be about as small as his finger. So I'm gonna move this. And what I basically did, and I did the same for the little washcloth, or I should say something similar for the washcloth. Um, what I did in the Iron Brotherhood Tyler for that sequence was I made a high poly plane. Um, Basically, cut out a hole for the head, as if, the idea is if they just took a piece of cloth, cut a hole in it, and then draped it over him. Um, so I cut the hole in the plane, put a D-force modifier on it, and then D-force the plane onto the figure. I'll kind of show you some. I'll show you sort of. I'll kind of show you the steps in a second. Well, not exactly, but you take the plane, you cut a hole in the center of it. I'll send it over to hexagon and sort of make the hole round instead of square. And then over here under simulation settings, click on the little line thing to bring up the menu, select D-Force, and you add a D-Force modifier dynamic surface. And then once you do that, and I won't do it now because it'll end up messing things up here, but once you do that, then you position the plane over the character with the head through the hole, and you hit simulate, and it should drape it over the character as if it's a piece of cloth. At that point, I can then send it to Hexagon and then send it back. And when it comes back, the new prop will be stuck in that shape. It will no longer be a deforceable plane. So I did the same thing with this washcloth, with the face cloth here. So if I take off perspective view and let's zoom in, oh my god, on the washcloth. So I basically did the same thing. I took this plane, deforced it over David, and then sent it to Hexagon and back so that it's now a static prop. But being draped over the character like a robe, what I can then do is come into Edit, Object, because at that point it's an object, and use Transfer Utility. And you basically, your source, and I can't do it, it's like you click select an item, and then in the list of this mess, you select the figure that it's going to fit. Hit escape. And then for target scene source, your target is going to be that draped piece of clothing. And then you show options. Because I've got nothing selected, I can't show. I can't show anything. But it's basically you're going to select morph targets, and there's going to come up a menu over here, and you select the appropriate options, and you hit accept. And it's basically, it should give it the same morphs as the source figure. And if you fit it to the figure, it should move with the figure just like a piece of clothing. So I'm not sure if I want David to be wearing like a robe, or if I want to try something a little different. Or just like I've been doing, hand wave it away and pretend that he wears doll and then action figure clothing from here on. But this is page 14, so we save that. Let's wrap this up. Flatten the image, export as, and enter. We come in here. Okay, so here's page 14. So you spent the whole meal doing damage control. I never did get to tell them what I wanted to. You've been here an hour and he still hasn't said his goodbyes to the two of you. It's like he doesn't care about us or something. I'm serious here. I'm not going to be around next week, and I'm working myself up to telling you two how much you mean to me, but all you want to do is joke and ruin the moment. It's like so cruel. But that's page 14. And here after 10 stories, we're back to using their like little in-home sauna that I've just kind of hated. It's like this whole bathroom I just hate at this point in my work. And I think the bathroom situation is primarily why eventually I want to move them out of this house. But so far, that's page 14. I will see you next time, whenever that is. And I appreciate you tuning in. I appreciate your support. I know it sounds like I'm kind of just saying the words here, but I really do mean it. I'm just kind of tired, and it feels like saying it just feels so hackney. But, I still, it's still important to me, and, I appreciate each and every one of you. But I'm getting a little weird here, so I will say goodbye, and I'll see you next time.